What is up? Welcome back to today's episode of the Vendetta Sports Media Daily Show. I'm losing track of my days here, but it's July 6th. I'm here with Jackson. This is the first time Jackson and I have actually done this together, man. What's going on? How's it going?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Spent 3 days on the boat. Now back to real life. So
Okay, where were you at?
Tahoe.
Tahoe. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, okay. I live up in Sparks, so
Oh, really? I live South Reno.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're pretty close. I mean, unfortunately, not. I don't want to say unfortunately for you, but for me, I don't know shit about soccer. Uh, the extent of my knowledge when it comes to soccer is like I watch the World Cup every 4 years. That's really about it. I love watching the World Cup. I watched it this last year. It was a lot of fun. But
Hey, man, that's like most of my friends, honestly, that I it's like that. They watch the World Cup, and then every time I hang out with them now or see them every now and then, it's like, dude, can you explain this or this or this? It's like that. So
yeah, like Messi's going to Inter Miami. What's going on with that?
Yep, that was the question. What's that mean? Yeah, stuff like that.
I mean, there's not a whole lot of like sports news in general to talk about, or at least like breaking news. I mean, in terms of like I know you and I talked a little bit beforehand, but we're gonna get into some NBA. We're probably gonna get into some NFL. But nevertheless, there is the Dame Lillard rumor, like the rumor cycle, I guess, what's going on right now. Like what are you? I mean, I went over this with Bagdonis a lot on Tuesday, but like what's your kind of perspective of everything, at least thus far through this offseason, especially with like the Dame Lillard, because that's probably like the biggest story that's going on in the NBA right now.
Yeah, for sure. Well, like last time I talked about the NBA on the Daily Show, I was with Jeremiah, and we both kind of said it'd be cool if we could see Dame stay and play with Scoot. And like he made comments in the past talking about like, oh, if the two of them come together, they'll be like unstoppable. I was really hoping for that. And then literally a day after we talked about that, I'm like, Dame Lillard to get traded. Like, all right, that. But now, I mean, it's kind of crazy to think about. I mean, when I think about Portland Trailblazers, I think Damian Lillard, they're like synonymous, you know? So now him going to the Heat just kind of good news for the Heat. I think you're a Heat fan, aren't you?
Yeah, I got the big flag behind me.
Figured right there. But yeah, crazy stuff already with that.
I mean, nothing's official yet. I mean, at least in terms of the reporting, a lot of the reporting is that he wants to play for Miami and only Miami. I don't know when that exactly will come into fruition. I don't know how exactly that's going to come about. I mean, I've seen things and read things about it not just being a 2-team trade. It's probably going to be a 3-team trade, a 4-team trade, because Portland's disinterest, for lack of a better word, for Tyler Hero. They don't like Tyler Hero, and they don't want that. He's Miami's most valuable asset outside of Bam and Jimmy. And so that, like, I don't know when exactly. I mean, there could be a timetable that could happen. The moratorium is now officially over, so these deals can be made official, whether it's like non-minimum or rookie, like free agent signings or trades or whatever. And like when you look at some of these trades, when they're not being made official, that could mean there's like an extra chain link. And so, like, for example, the Victor Oladipo trade to Oklahoma City, that can get just looped into this Damian Lillard trade, for example. Like, not saying it will, but it could. And of course, when it comes to 3-team, 4-team, 5-team, however many team trades, you have to find teams who are interested in those negotiations. Like, do I want to send assets to Miami, or do I want to send assets to Portland or any other teams that are involved? And so it gets really tricky with stuff like that. And like going to just the Dame Portland thing, like there's loyalty matters. And I think that gets kind of lost in the NBA, because it's like there's obviously the player empowerment era where like guys will get their money or whatever the case is, and then within a year just be like, I want out. Yeah. And we don't see a lot of that anymore. And so for me, for the longest time, I was like, I don't think Dame is requesting this trade, because for years and years and years, it was he's not wanting to run from the grind, for example. And like I'm completely with you and Germani with I mean, seeing him with Scoot would be just a whole lot of fun. Him him, Scoot, Shaden Sharp, et cetera, et cetera. But then again, like he, Scoot, and Simons, I don't know how all that was going to shake itself out, and someone was going to go. Maybe it was Simons in the 3rd overall pick at the time before the draft, or whatever the case may be. But just kind of end my. I don't even know what tangent I was going on with this, but regardless, I again, nothing's official yet. We still have to wait and see. It's a waiting game. It's just the same reporting pretty much every day about where he's at, the perspective that he kind of has with like Miami and only Miami. But there's also another big trade kind of not trade request. I mean, I guess it's a trade request, but James Harden, how he requested his trade. It was, I think, a few days before game. It wasn't very much longer before free agency about him wanting to get traded to the Clippers. Like, what I didn't talk about that with Bagdonis. I don't know if anyone's talked about that on here yet, but like, what's your kind of perspective on that so far?
Yeah, that's Giarmani and I talked a little bit about this at the end, just because it was kind of happened like right before, like we said, the moratorium opened. We were like, damn. I was kind of hoping for the Houston return. I still kind of am.
Okay.
I think that would be sick to see. That was when he was at his best, I think, definitely. When he was in
Yeah.
Houston, like, no doubt. So I think that would make sense. Maybe none of these what these guys do really makes sense in a certain way where I would think it makes sense,
Yeah.
because there's so much money involved and obviously the rings. But from my perspective, I think him going back to Houston, they love him back. I think he'd be good again there. I'd like to see Houston, but there's so many teams that are looking at him that I just have no idea where he's going to go, honestly.
It would be a little difficult to navigate. I don't know if it's at least outside of these new signings that Houston's had, because I mean, they just pretty much backed up the Brink truck for Van Vliet.
Yeah.
They backed up the Brink truck for, I mean, not to at least relative to his market for Jock Landale, Dylan Brooks, who had 4 for 80. I don't know if they would have the contracts to match, because I mean, it's not like he's a free agent right now, because he opted into his player option. He's not extension eligible, and so that's something that teams have to think about when it comes to trading for James Harden. Is that since he signed that 2-year deal last offseason, he can't renegotiate, or not renegotiate. He can't like just sign a three-year extension. So when it comes to at least like the Clippers, who have been, I think, the team with probably the most, who are like his, I don't want to say his top destination, but they've been the most rumored to land James Harden, or they've been like the hottest team in those kind of discussions. It's like you're trying to argue with yourself, how much should I send back, because I can't renegotiate with them. And with the Clippers specifically, they're already in such a high, they already have like the highest payroll in the league, or one of the highest payrolls in the league. And so you're already paying a whole lot of money to Paul George or Kawhi Leonard. I don't know if you would have to give up one of those in a potential trade, whether it's a 2-team trade or a 3-team trade, whatever. But you're already in such a deep like situation with like the tax. And then with Houston, I mean, that was like the rumored spot for a while, at least heading into it before he opted in. I mean, I don't know. Again, I don't think that's a big enough possibility now. I think what could happen with this is that he just ends up returning to Philly. And I don't know, just because it's like, I don't know what the market is for him right now. And maybe it comes to a situation where he returns to Philly. They decide to ship him if they're not playing well in February. Maybe they don't want to get nothing back for him. So, I mean, that would be a little bit of a rough situation. But I mean, Daryl Morey's before has held out and been patient with these type of deals and wanting to get the exact asking price that he wants. And so I think that's something to take into account. And if he doesn't get that by August, September, October, whatever the case is, he might just hold James Harden. I mean, he doesn't have to trade him, obviously, on an expiring contract. He's more valuable than if he wasn't, but I don't know what exactly his market is right now, because he can't sign an extension with the team that he gets traded to, if he hypothetically gets traded to, whether it's Houston, the Clippers, I don't know, Team X. Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. I think, yeah. So you like him going back to Philly then?
I mean, I think there's a greater likelihood that he does return to Philly than I think it's getting thrown out there, so to speak. Um, I mean, obviously, him and Embiid were one of the best duos in the entire league this last year, in terms of like they're one of the most effective pick and roll duos in all of basketball. Obviously, the flame out in the playoffs isn't great. Philly's made it out of the second round like once in like the last 40 years, um, and so like that's not great. But I just think, yeah, he requested trade. He's requested, I think, three or four trade, or no, it'd be three trades in like the last couple of seasons.
Yeah.
And so he's been bouncing around. I don't think teams would want to give up. Like teams want to probably give up 60 cents on the dollar or 70 cents on the dollar instead of the asking price that Daryl Morey wants. Because Daryl Morey is not going to want 60 cents on the dollar or 70 cents on the dollar, whether it's 1 year James Harden, 4 years of James Harden, or whatever the case is. But I think at a certain point you have to come to a grip. And I don't know. Again, I don't know if that's something that's going to happen now or if that's something that's going to happen in February, whatever the case is. And maybe a team does offer a lot for James Harden because they think he's going to sign an extension with them. But I think, again, just going back to the player empowerment thing, guys who will get their money and then all of a sudden be upset or whatever the case is. I don't know what the balance is specifically for James Harden, because he's shown before when he's a disgruntled superstar, he's not, you can tell how disengaged he is. And I don't know if it's a situation where it's like, whether it's toxic to bring him back, but I think there is like some semblance of a likelihood that he does get brought back. And I don't know, because Daryl Morey is a different breed when it comes to GMing in terms of like getting what he wants back. Some GMs just never want to lose a trade. Like Masai Ujiri is a good example of that with Toronto. He doesn't want to lose a trade. He's either going to keep his assets and hold them tight until he gets what he wants. And we saw that at the trade deadline. He wasn't willing to trade Van Vliet, Siakam, whatever the case, whomever, because he wasn't getting exactly what he wanted. So he just kind of kept those assets. And now guess what he's losing? He lost Fred Van Vliet for nothing, and he got Dennis Schroeder in return. That's not a good substitute for that. But I don't want to say I like him returning to Philly. I just think there's a good enough possibility. I think there's certainly a greater likelihood he returns to Philly than he does go to Houston, just because he can't be, like, I don't think he can be traded there. At least it'd be trying to manipulate that would be a little tough.
Fair enough. I'm speaking from the fan perspective here.
Yeah, no.
From the casual NBA fan perspective, seeing
Yeah.
back there would be awesome. But yeah, you basically just shut that whole idea down. So we'll move on from that.
There was a trade that happened yesterday. One of the few, I guess, transactions that have occurred throughout the league over the last several days. It was a little bit of obviously a smaller one than the two players that we just talked about, but there was a 3-team sign and trade with Dallas, San Antonio, and Boston. Dallas got Grant Williams for I think I've seen 4 for 53. I've seen 4 for 54. Nevertheless, he got signed and traded to the Dallas Mavericks for a little over $12 million in his first year. Boston got second-round picks in return. The Spurs, I think, got Reggie Bullock and maybe, I think, 1 or 2 picks out of that as well. But it's a smaller scale trade. But like, what were your, I guess, initial thoughts on that, if you happen?
Honestly, not a huge, because again, like, haven't been following it besides the big news things, but yeah, I'm looking at it now. Honestly, the first time I've heard of it, so I kind of fell behind, not gonna lie. But
well, now I get your instant reaction.
Yeah, for sure. So let's see. It's Grant Williams is going to the Dallas Mavs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure how to think about it, honestly. You know, because whenever I see teams trade away for like future things, obviously you're building for the future.
Yeah,
I
especially
don't.
with
Yeah,
picks, just picks.
yeah, which is always a gamble, but I mean, fair enough, I guess. Dallas. I don't really know enough about Grant Williams to like make an accurate like assumption, but he doesn't really excite me when I see it, if that makes sense.
I don't think he excites many people, if I'm
Yeah,
being completely. I mean, Celtics fans did love him because he is that kind of 3-and-D. I'm going to be annoying when I can, whether it's to my opponent, like we saw in the playoffs a little bit with Jimmy Butler, or to the. I mean, he is a very like I think Celtics even players would like get on him, and he's kind of known as kind of that like annoying guy, and almost in like an endearing way, not as like in like a bad way, but he is like a 3-and-D guy that can help Dallas, because I mean Dallas was a team that needed defense, and they've addressed that this offseason with uh, Olivia Maxon's prosper in free agency, or not in free agency, in the draft. I mean, I don't know how much run he's going to get, but Dante Exum signed earlier in the offseason. There was something else that happened. Um, I mean, I guess now it's kind of moot, but they did sign Matisse Thybulle to the offer sheet, but Portland eventually matched that. So I guess that's moot now. But they have addressed the defensive end of the ball this offseason, because, again, after they traded for Kyrie this last year, their defense was a disaster because they had to trade a couple of their most important defenders. And so now they secure Grant Williams for, I think, a pretty good price, if I'm being completely honest with you. I don't think, what was it? I don't know the exact math off the top of my head, but 13 per, 14 per. I think that's a fair deal for Grant Williams over 4 years, especially since Boston was in a position to where they kind of hamstrung themselves with trading for Porzingis, with not the Brown Supermax yet, but like they're a situation where it's like there's the second apron, which is implemented by the new CBA. You might have seen that, but in long story short, a TLDR is that it has a lot of restrictions, like team building restrictions on like who you can sign, what can you use to sign them, and stuff like that if you don't have cap space. And they're like right around that mark. And so it's like they could have matched a restricted free agent offer hypothetically for Grant Williams, but it was in a sign and trade. And so they got something back in return. Yeah, it was a couple second round picks, yippee skippy. But at least they got, I don't even want to say something out of it. I mean, again, it's second round picks. Teams are trading second round picks like crazy nowadays, but I think he is definitely a player that helps Dallas. I think he is someone that it hurts that Boston loses. But I mean, like, again, it's right now with the whole Dame, Harden, mostly Dame, but it feels like just the free agent market and teams getting deals done is kind of like it's slowed down a lot. Um, and so I guess just right now, teams who aren't in contention for Dame, obviously, most teams aren't, especially since now that he only wants to go to Miami. But teams are just making smaller moves to improve, and Grant Williams is one of the best names on the free agent market. And considering Dallas again addressed a need, it helps them. So that's kind of, I guess, at least in like layman's terms, that's kind of my thoughts on it.
fair enough. And the Celtics have Porzingis coming in too, so
Yeah.
yeah.
And Porzingis is a good player. Like, he's not, I don't even know if you want to call him like a Grant replacement, but he is absolutely a good player that can help them when he's on the court. I mean, I know he's had injury struggles, but he's coming off the best season of his career. I think it wasn't even like a bad or like a good stats bad team situation with him in Washington last year. I thought he was like a legitimately impactful player, and he could definitely help them in their front court. But I guess that's kind of the trade-off that you have to make. Not you have to make, but kind of a trade-off Boston has decided to make is, do I want to pay Grant Williams this money and potentially restrict ourselves from an additional team building perspective, or do I want to I guess, pay Kristaps Porzingis. I mean, he's making $36 million this year. He's going to be making 30 per over the next 2 because he signed an extension. But like it was just kind of a choice that Boston had to grapple with, and it's also kind of ominous how they haven't signed Jaylen Brown to their supermax yet. I mean, again, we had this. I don't know if you're in our NBA Slack chat, but we had this discussion a couple of days ago, and like a couple of the Celtics fans in our chat are worried about Jaylen Brown not signing already. And it's just like we're a couple of days into free agency, guys. We can cool it a little bit. Like if it's like mid-August and he hasn't signed the extension yet, then you can get a little bit worried. But if he hasn't, then or if he does, great. If he hasn't, then you can maybe worry a little bit. But I just think I just think that part just by itself is a little interesting.
Fair enough. Love how you're able to come in with all that compared to my very limited analytical NBA skills.
I mean, the one thing I will address in terms of like soccer is the Gold Cup. That is, I think the quarterfinals are this weekend. U.S. plays Canada, who they played. What was in another like CONCACAF tournament?
At the Nations League,
Nations League a couple weeks ago. I was looking at it actually because I didn't actually know this, but I read somewhere about this when I was reading a couple days ago. It looks like the United States and Mexico are like the 2 teams who have won the Gold Cup like every single year since like 2000.
Except like one year, Canada.
Yeah. And like I mean, I think that's interesting. I think Mexico plays Costa Rica, if I can
they do
remember correctly. Like what I guess in terms of the 8 teams that are left, like what are your thoughts on like is the United States in the best position to win? Is there a team that you're looking out for that could potentially give them a run for their money, whether it is Canada or someone else? Like, I guess, what are your thoughts on that?
All right. Number one, this Canada team is absolute dog shit. When you take Lonzo Davies and Jonathan David, they're not good, man. They let Cuba score twice on them. And I actually haven't watched the highlights yet. Again, I'm behind on so much crap, but I haven't watched the highlights. But apparently there's some goalkeeping errors, and they beat Cuba 4-2, and Cuba's absolutely terrible. They had 4 players defect after the first game.
Oh,
yeah. So Canada right now.
Oh, I think I do remember seeing something about. I don't remember it being 4, but
yeah, 4.
I want to say I did see something about a couple defecting. I mean, that's that. Yeah,
okay. That happens anytime Cuba's over here for anything.
That's fair enough.
Player, they always defect. Cuba's team goes to absolute crap. They rebuild for like 4, 5, 6 years and then repeat cycle.
Okay.
But yeah, Canada 4-2 against that team. They let that team score twice on them. They tied Guadeloupe at home, which I'm not going to lie. When I was watching the tournament, I thought Guadeloupe was kind of good, but you're friggin' Canada. Like, you went to the World Cup. You're probably the second best team in CONCACAF right now when you're full strength. You shouldn't be tying teams like that. And then they tied Guatemala. So really unimpressive from them. U.S. doesn't have our best roster. Like, we have like kind of like a C team, but we should take care of Canada easily. Granted, it's a knockout stage game. Mm-hmm. Anything can happen. So, and I feel like anytime I make a bold prediction, it just happens to not come true, even if everything looks like it should happen that way. So you never know. But U.S. should take care of that one easily. The team that has impressed me the most this tournament is by far Jamaica.
Okay.
That team they have is actually so good. They have, when they want to do this, they can have 4 Premier League starters in their attack, which is kind of crazy to see because they recruited a bunch of dual national English-born Jamaican players. You got Mikel Antonio, Damari Gray's recent, Bobby De Cordova-Reid, and Leon Bailey, who legitimately was born in Jamaica but now plays for Aston Villa. So you have those 4 up front. Those 4 are absolutely nasty. You have a bit of a talent drop-off because then you have some dudes who are playing USL Championship, if you know what that is. It's like 2nd division in the U.S.
Right.
So you have a little bit of a talent drop-off, but that team is damn good. And they deserve to beat us when we played them, like, definitely. So I think Jamaica is going to be a team to watch out for. They're playing against Guatemala, and they should absolutely run through them, I think. And then Mexico, Costa Rica. Mexico should win, but Mexico lost to Qatar in the most FIFA
I
resembling
remember that.
game.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, dude. This final stats on that were crazy. When you watch the game, it's like watching you play FIFA against like, I don't know, like me against my little brother who's never played and he gets a lucky goal and then holds on the win. That's how the game felt, like by far. So, but I think Mexico should take this one. Costa Rica got through in the final day. They beat Martinique in a game that finished 5-3, which was crazy in its own right. But I don't think Costa Rica is going to have enough. I think Mexico goes through for sure. So far it's U.S., Jamaica, Mexico, and then the other game is Panama versus Qatar. Maybe the least exciting CONCACAF knockout matchup I've seen in a long time. But Panama should win. The fact that Qatar is still in this tournament with as bad as they've been is absolutely ridiculous. They've been outclassed by every team they've played, and they somehow beat Mexico and got through. But Panama's look pretty good, not going to lie. They look solid in all their games. They tied their last game versus El Salvador, but at that point they were already through. They were already going to win the group as well, so they didn't really. I'm not saying they didn't care, but like they just didn't have the same stakes. So I think they'll beat Qatar because again, Qatar is god awful, and I want them out of this tournament as soon as possible. But yeah, those are the teams, and I think the U.S. has a good shot of going all the way with this one as well. We did it with a similar roster last Gold Cup. A lot of MLS guys playing in Europe who aren't really involved with the like the A team. So we saw that last time, and we beat everyone, and then beat a full strength Mexico squad in the final. I feel like it could be kind of similar here. Mexico basically has their full roster, full squad. Obviously, their two star players, Chucky Lozano, Tecatito Corona, are both injured. So, like, that's a huge miss for them. But even then, they still have a very good squad when you look at it. And they've been pretty good in the tournament, obviously, besides losing to Qatar. They've done well, beat Honduras 4-0, beat Haiti 3-1. So they look solid. And even in that game, they still dominated Qatar. So I think they definitely have the quality to go through. I think it will end up being the U.S. and Mexico in the final, which will make anyone involved with the planning of this tournament happy because that is the only way you will get fans at the tournament is when Mexico is involved. So I think it will end up like that. But, dude, Jamaica versus Mexico in the semifinals could be a fun one. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if Jamaica did win. I think Mexico will win, but Jamaica definitely could. Like, they have enough about them. And then, honestly, the winner of that game might win the final, but I'm still backing the U.S. I feel like I have to. I'm about as big of a U.S. soccer junkie as you'll ever find. So, always going to back the U.S. in any game. So, yeah.
Okay, I mean, just I'm looking at it right here. There was an injury replacement with the U.S. national team.
Yep.
Like, how do you think that will, I guess, impact their stand? I mean, again, like, they're facing Canada, which, as you kind of outlined, they should beat. But like, how do you think this like just affects them at least for the future, or at least future like the rest of this tournament?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Alan Sonora, he's a good player, and like he was with the A team, if you will, during the Nations League games, and he's probably going to be more involved in the future. But he's relatively new to the setup. So, like, losing him isn't like you lose, like, Matt Turner in goal, who's been our goalkeeper, our starting goalkeeper for so many games. You know, he's not going to be a huge loss. Obviously, you'd rather have him around, but it's okay, honestly. And you're bringing in Jackson Ewell, who has, I want to say, 12 caps-ish with the U.S. national team. He played at the last Gold Cup. He's been with the team. He was at camp last March? Yeah, when the U.S. played Mexico. He didn't actually play that game, but he is still training with a lot of these same guys. It makes no difference. It makes no difference whatsoever. You know, I think, honestly, it could honestly be better for morale. I mean, it's never good to lose a player. Like, so I guess that's wouldn't be an accurate statement. It's obviously not going to be good for morale to lose Senora, but bringing in Ewell isn't going to be a huge disruption. because he's been with the team. I think that's why they called him in over some other guys they had on the preliminary roster, because he's been with the group. He has Gold Cup experience. It makes no difference. He's not. I don't think Senor was going to start anyway. I mean, maybe it would have. He has in some games, but I personally would rather see other guys. But I don't think it makes a huge difference.
This one's a little bit of a weird question that I have, but are we going to see if it is U.S. Mexico in the finals? Are we going to see another crazy red card like we saw with Weston McKennie?
Every time we play, man, there's always some bullshit that happens. So yeah, I could.
One of the more wild things that I've just seen.
That was fun, dude. That was straight just like mud wrestling at the end. It felt like, but yeah, the Serginho Dest one. But I don't think it'll be quite to that same extent. I will say if they play, you're going to hear some putos going on from the fans. You're going to see the game stopped for those homophobic chants, because that happens every damn time that Mexico's losing. And you're going to see some fiery interactions, because it's U.S. versus Mexico. It's one of the greatest rivalries in the world. Any Euro snob or South American person who says otherwise is crazy. Because if you watch the games, man, the players get into it. Like, there is legitimate hatred amongst them, and it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, just as like a kid growing up, I remember like I'm throwing this back. I mean, not a huge throwback, but I'm throwing it back at least to my standards. When like I was a kid growing up, I mean, obviously I grew up in an area where there was a lot of like Javier and like Chicharito was like very popular, where it was like Memo Ochoa.
Yeah.
Both of those guys were like two of the most popular like players. And then on the United States side, you had the guys who I grew up with were like Landon Donovan, Clint Dempsey, Josie Altidore, Michael Bradley. Like there just felt like there was always, whether it was an international friendly or not, or I mean, whether it was a tournament, it always felt like there was some bad blood and there was some like animosity towards the two sides. I mean, again, there are two countries that are right next to each other. When does that not happen to at least some extent? But there was another like Mexican player that was very popular. I'll look it up later. But those were like the two main players, at least when I was growing up through my teens and throughout high school and everything, that really sparked interest and sparked a rivalry, at least among my peers. I wasn't obviously invested in it a whole lot. I mean, I was a big Landon Donovan fan when I was a kid, but that's just because he was the United States. I don't even want to say soccer legend, but he was one of the best players that the United States had. I mean, you probably know this better than I would, but he was kind of the guy that I grew up on and with, at least as a very casual soccer fan growing up.
Yeah. And I mean, he is arguably the best player in U.S. soccer history. I am still a Dempsey fan. I love Deuce. That man's got that crazy Texan in him where he's just got that psychopathic energy.
He does.
I mean, the dude, when he found out he was going to start a game when he was in England, and then they suddenly told him, no, this other guy's going to start. He punched a window in the locker room in frustration and walked out. Like,
I've never heard that. That just looking at it from an outsider's perspective, that does sound like something that he would do.
Yeah, breaking people's jaws in practice. Like, he had that absolute dog in him. And Donovan, I loved him as a player. He pisses me off now that he's not a player with some of the stuff he says. But as a player, man, no one embodied the U.S.-Mexico rivalry more than Donovan. Like, I'll give him that. Like, he loved beating Mexico. Like, in the 2002 World Cup, God, I wish I was alive to see this. But when the U.S. beat Mexico, man, it was all him. And he was loving every single moment of it. And then on the bus ride back, apparently, he was – the U.S. Bus passed the Mexico bus, and he was the one going like, fuck you. So I give him so much credit for that. I think Donovan perfectly embodied that rivalry. And I feel like a lot of these guys, again, they're around our age. Some of these guys, like I'm 21. I don't know how old you are, but
23.
23. So
I just turned 23 a couple months ago, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so a lot of them are around our age. So they grew up watching this. I feel like it's more fun now, though, especially now that the U.S. is winning.
Yeah.
Because Mexico, I'm going to say that I grew up here in Reno. the soccer community here is like 99% Mexican. Then you get the occasional white boy like me. So
Right.
everyone was from Mexico, and they were always winning the stuff that mattered.
Mhm.
And now that the tide has shifted, I have so much fun with it, man. I have so much fun with the shit talking to all these kids I grew up with. I'm playing on a semi-pro team right now here, and like a bunch of them are Mexico
wow.
fans. After the U.S. game, man, you better believe I was bringing that up, and I was receiving so many. Man, come on. It was like we're better now, and they don't know what to do. So what that kind of has turned into is like in the game, that dude, I forget who it is, but he just like tackled Balawan from the back, just swiped his leg, not even going for the ball, just pure anger. And like, I think you're going to see more of that now because the U.S. has gone to a level where they are dominating CONCACAF right now. Anyone who says otherwise is foolish. They are the best team in CONCACAF.
They're
Mexico
the
has,
worst. No, I'm just
yeah, you and I would have a nice little argument. But yeah, Mexico, yeah, needs to catch up, and I think that's going to create a little bit of animosity and a little because of the desperation they're going to have. So if these two teams meet in the final, I don't think you're going to see quite the same level of red cards and stuff like that because you had Weston McKennie, who's as big of a shithousery master as you'll ever find. Like that man lives for that stuff. So you're probably not going to see the same element, and it doesn't feel like the same stakes are quite on the line because it's obviously not the US's A team. But you're
right.
definitely going to see a fiery matchup. You're going to see at least one head-to-head bat, like when they get super close, go head-to-head, start talking. You're going to see at least one of those, one pushing match. Always a fun time when the U.S. and Mexico play in a competitive game, and the fans are going to be going crazy because it's where's the final? Yeah, SoFi. So it's going to be SoCal.
I think it is SoFi. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're going to see a lot of Mexico fans.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping we see that in the final because the U.S. Mexico competitive games, there's nothing like it in CONCACAF. If we somehow got, let's see, what would be the worst matchup possible? Like Guatemala versus Qatar in the final, there'd be no interest. So you want the U.S. Mexico final for sure.
And it's like, yeah, like to your point about the U.S.'s kind of rise, so to speak. I like when this most recent World Cup where like you hear guys like Serginho Dest and Gio Reyna, who I don't think played a whole lot. Like you could see like the up and comers with like Weston McKennie, guys who were, I think they had, I want to say I saw somewhere that this most recent World Cup roster had, I think at or around the most players who were playing like in Europe for in like the Premier League or in like Serie A or something like that. Like they had a lot of guys who were getting like European experience, and it felt like, at least when like with their clubs, and at least when I was growing up, it didn't feel like there was a lot. I mean, I'm probably blanking on like a few names who did. I think maybe Michael Bradley, I think, played overseas a little bit.
Bradley was good overseas too.
Like there was a couple, but it felt like this roster had like a lot more. I think like Matt Turner was another one that played who plays overseas. Correct me if I'm wrong there.
That's my team right there.
Yeah. And so like when at least when I see that from, again, a casual outsider's perspective, it's like, well, shit, like this team's going to be pretty good. I mean, they struggled a little bit. Who did they get knocked out by again?
Oh, Netherlands. Yeah, we got outclassed.
It was Netherlands. And like Van Gaal is like probably, again, one of probably the better coaches that I can remember in my life.
Oh, yeah. He's a great manager. And then I feel like you don't get a lot of those in the international game because most good ones want to do club.
Right.
They had a really good coach. And yeah, they took Argentina all the way to extra time. So like,
right.
It was legit. And like when people were complaining about that game, it's like they're just better than we are across the board. They got a better head coach. They got better players, man. Like they're older, more experienced. So yeah.
But like when I see that again from like an outsider's perspective, it's like, oh shit, like this team's going to be like, it's an up and coming team. And like that just flashes me back to like one of my favorite memories, at least watching soccer as a kid, was the 2010 World Cup.
Yeah.
And like watching
that was the one right there. That was my first one that I remember too.
Yeah, that was like Donovan hits that goal against Algeria in extra time in the third game to push them to the knockout stage. I mean, I know they didn't get past Ghana, but it was still like, that was like, oh, whoa, like again, for me, I was 10 at the time, and so it's like I didn't know better. But regardless, it was still one of like the coolest moments that I can remember. At least now that the United States is on the up and coming, like maybe, I mean, maybe they can at least advance past the round of 16 in like a future World Cup or like a big tournament somewhere down there. I mean, obviously a big tournament like that. The World Cup is the biggest one and probably the only one, at least in terms of when you're competing against everyone internationally. But it feels like you're right. I mean, again, you know about this way more than I would, but like they are on the up and coming. They are on the up and up, and it's very cool to see that. Just
And
again, from a casual perspective, someone who doesn't really watch much soccer, play soccer, I'm dog shit. So
hey, no one cares, man. It's all about having fun. No one cares. But yeah, dude, I think one of the, like you talk about kind of the way we're up and coming and how it's exciting for you. Here, a stat that will really make you excited is during that last World Cup, we had the second youngest roster.
right, that yeah. Who's
Ghana?
I think it was Ghana was the youngest.
0.1 years. So it's basically like you're basically
I remember seeing that. Yeah,
second youngest. So the fact that we were able to get to the round of 16, we tied England, and we didn't just tie England; we outplayed England.
yeah.
Did what we had to against Iran, even though Iran looked dangerous that game. We did what we had to.
I remember for like it was. I want to say for like a 60 or 70-minute segment.
Oh my gosh!
It looked you were sitting on the tip of your seat.
And I thought they were going to get a penalty, and then that ball that went through Turner's legs. But yeah, so we look good in that tournament with the young squad. It's exciting because a lot of these dudes are going to keep progressing with their careers. Gio Reyna is one I think he's really going to progress. He's going to build off of that whole. I don't know if you're well versed with the Gio Reyna, Greg Berhalter situation, but
yeah,
that was some HBO level drama.
Bit, yeah.
Yeah, that was my, believe it or not, I used that as my final project for one of my classes, was just talking about that because there's just so much to talk about. But I think Gio Reyna is going to really build off of that experience. He's already doing well for his club team, Borussia Dortmund. They're losing some key players like Jude Bellingham, and they might be moving on some other attackers. I'm not really sure what they're going to do yet. But I think you could see him kind of building a more prominent role with them and maybe get a move in the next 3 years. Pulisic looks like he's going to AC Milan. Thank the Lord he needs to get out of Chelsea. That place is a dumpster fire. It was just not working for him in the Premier League. So looks like he's going to go there. You're going to see other players moving. Like McKennie might go to Dortmund now. You're seeing all this stuff. I think you're going to see more players coming from the U.S. to Europe and kind of showing out in the next few years. Ricardo Pepi is kind of really – I don't want to say taking like the mantle, because we got Balawan, who's huge commitment for the U.S. He's one of the best youth strikers in the world. He's probably going to get sold for millions of dollars. For my club, Arsenal, he's legit, and he's playing for us now. That's huge. But then you see players like Ricardo Pepi who are doing well, and they're younger than me, which is honestly depressing. But really makes me question where I went wrong in my soccer development. But Ricardo Pepi is another one. And you're going to see some more players coming through. Like I saw some dude from USL Championship side in Oakland the other day, just moved over to Europe. So you're going to see like a lot more coming from all these different avenues going over there. A lot won't pan out, but a lot are going to pan out. Like more are going to pan out than have been. So next World Cup, you're going to see that team that just played, but 4 years more experience, 3 years more experienced.
Yeah.
They're going to be, like 26, 25. So a lot of them are going to be starting their primes of their career. And then the next World Cup after that, they'll all be in their primes of their career. So these next two World Cups, they keep that core going. You're going to have a very exciting team. You're going to keep adding on to it. It looks like, at least, because when you look at some of these youth players, there's a 15-year-old kid named Kevin Sullivan who people think is going to be an absolute world beater. So you've got like a lot of exciting players coming through the MLS pipeline. Mm-hmm. So it's a fun time to be a U.S. soccer fan. But like you said, the evolution is crazy. And when someone who doesn't watch a lot of soccer like you can see it, it's exciting for someone who follows it like me and has seen the dark days of U.S. soccer.
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude. Don't even get me started. And a good indication of the fact that the U.S. was going to be bad then was that our youth teams were absolute dog shit for like years leading up to that. Because then, even though you're still going to have good players like Pulisic, who was young at that time, the core group is terrible. So the fact that our youth teams are doing well now is a good sign for the future because our U20s were good, U17s look good, and we have all these other up and coming prospects. So I think it's it's exciting times to be a U.S. soccer fan, man, and hopefully better times are ahead. Looking forward to it.
And I mean, now that there's going to be, I believe you wrote about this for the site, but there's going to be the Club World Cup that's going to be here.
Another
There's going to be the World Cup that's going to be here in 26.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm losing my years here.
Yeah,
but in 26, like there's with the U.S. itself on the rise, there's going to be plenty of soccer events here for the fans to kind of like, again, the casual fan like me to indulge themselves in. And so that's also something that is encouraging, so to speak, and it's something to look forward to as someone, again, as ill-witted as myself can kind of get into, leading up to 2026 and 2030, so on and so forth. And it's like the women's team has been, I don't know how good they are now, but like
they're still, man. Yeah, they're still the favorite heading into this World Cup.
Yeah, like 2011 and 2015 specifically were two of them where I was just like, they're completely blowing the doors off. Like Megan Rapinoe, Abby Wambach, like they're blowing the doors off people. Hope Solo. But then you, on like the men's side, there again, as you mentioned, there was a little bit of a drop off, and so now that there's up and coming, and now they're having these like events here and stuff, and now with Messi coming to the United States for MLS, I know that's not relative to U.S. soccer, but it gets the fans interested,
Yeah, but it is because of that.
Yeah.
You look at all the stuff that's happening, like you said, all the stuff that can get a casual fan into it. There's so much because you have the Copa America next year.
Right.
Perfect timing because Messi, that'll probably be his final tournament with Argentina. And he's going to be playing for Inter Miami. It's like a perfect storm with that one. So that'll be huge. And then, Club World Cup after that, you're going to see Real Madrid here, Manchester City here, Chelsea here, teams from Brazil, other teams from Europe. They're all going to be here for about a month playing in a competitive format. That will be fun. That will get viewership. That will get fans. And then after that, you have the World Cup, which World Cup is when people really, like the casual fans, who really watched, And it'll be back during the summer, thank the Lord. So, that as well. It's hard to watch games when you're in class. We'll say that. But
yeah. Or when it's like, I mean, I guess this is how it is when you're halfway across the world anyway, but you wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning to watch a game.
Yeah. And so now it's going to be here. I think you're going to see soccer's popularity skyrocket. It already is. Like, it's past hockey in terms of popularity, and it's closing in on baseball in terms of like viewership. I don't know participation, honestly. I don't know for youth sports. I assume baseball still probably.
Baseball in the United States, yeah.
Everyone played baseball growing up, except for me, believe it or not. But I feel like everyone does. But
I think just soccer globally is more popular. But
I'm just thinking about U.S. So like in terms of popularity in the U.S. Because the more popular the sport is, the more people are going to play it, the more good players are going to kind of develop, and then the cycle keeps going like that because then more people will watch because the players are better, and then. So very good news for U.S. soccer. And with all these tournaments, I think the popularity is just going to skyrocket. And if the U.S. can do well at this next World Cup, it could be the third most popular sport in the U.S., especially with like the way immigration's working, and then just obviously the movement away from football at the youth level towards like more so people playing like soccer and stuff. Yeah, it could be huge for soccer's popularity.
Do you think that, like, as like a follow-up, how do you determine like a success? I mean, I know we're still 3 years away from this, but how would you determine success for the U.S.? Like, is it getting to the round of 16? Is it getting to the quarterfinals, the final 8? Like, what is like, like what's success to you in that respect? What do you think would be success with this, I guess, with the A team that's currently constructed now?
So this one's difficult to call 3 years out.
Yeah, it's three. Yeah, you have to look. You have to see what the final roster looks like. Who's in the group stage, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But obviously, you got to get out of the group.
Yeah.
And this next World Cup's gonna have a round of 32. So like,
okay.
Stage, yeah.
Round
so
of 32. Okay, my mistake.
I'm gonna say quarterfinals would be very successful because that means you win 2 knockout games, you get a lot of people into it, and at that point you're playing like elite teams who like a lot of results can go either way, So if you reach that point, you had a good tournament. Obviously, I think you want to reach the semifinals. That's something we haven't done since 1930, since the 30s, back when there were like, I don't know, like 12 teams at the World Cup. And it's something no one from CONCACAF has been able to do in the modern era. So you want to reach high, aim for the stars, all that stuff. So I think semifinals would be dream. That happens. Incredibly successful World Cup. But honestly, I think if you reach the quarterfinals, it's still a success, because you're in the final 8 teams of like the World Cup. Like you're among the 8 best teams in the world. I think that would be a success for sure. But definitely got to get out of the group and get at least one knockout win. Because we haven't won a knockout game since 2002. So you got to get out of the group. You got to win that first knockout game. And I know some people would obviously say you got to go higher, but I think honestly that would be a success. But again, we're going to see where these players develop, how the team develops, how other teams are looking, and then kind of go.
It's hard to make a determination, but just
something. But obviously, you want to at least win one knockout game and probably try to reach the quarterfinals. Then I think it'll be a huge success for the U.S.
Okay, and then the final question I have for you, at least that I can think of right now, correct me if I'm wrong here again, but I think Inter Miami is like the worst MLS team.
Oh, they're terrible. Yeah.
How do you think Messi? I mean, obviously, no shit, he's going to improve them, but like, do you think they're like in MLS Cup territory? Do you think they need to add a couple more pieces? I think there's been rumors floated about them potentially bringing in some of Messi's former teammates that he played with in Barcelona and so on and so forth. But how do you think he? I don't want to say how do you think he makes them better because he's going to make them better, but what do you like? Do you think they're in MLS Cup territory?
No,
they're not.
No, they're not at all. You can bring in a superstar, but if you don't have a foundation, you're going to still be terrible. They did do a good thing. They brought in Tata Martino as a coach who coached Messi at Barcelona. He coached Argentina in the past. Obviously, he coached Mexico at the World Cup. An absolute disaster for him. But he's a good MLS coach. He coached Atlanta United before the Mexico job and was a legit head coach with them. So good signing there. Someone who has coached Messi before, speaks Spanish, can culturally fit into the Miami soccer scheme. They also signed Sergio Busquets already, which was Messi's teammate at Barcelona. So that's a huge one right there. So you have a good center midfielder now, and then a good winger, attacking mid, whatever the hell you want Messi to play. He can do whatever he wants. They'll probably just let him float, honestly. That's what people are doing because he's just that good. But they're also trying to bring in someone like Jordi Alba, who at left back, he'd be very good. Trying to bring in Eden Hazard. They're trying to convince him to come. Sergio Ramos is having talks with them. So you get some of these guys in. They could be good. But I still don't think the way to win a title is using old superstars in the soccer world. It just isn't.
Right.
The way the MLS works now, you have these talented young Americans, these talented South Americans who are young dudes who are then looking to move on to Europe, playing on teams. Those are the teams that are going to do well. Or these dudes who have these legit dudes, a little bit young, a lot younger, honestly, some of them than these guys coming in. Obviously not as good as they are in their peaks, and they probably aren't as good as they are now in terms of their ability and their knowledge, but they're still younger, and they're still probably going to be more hungry to win, I want to say, than someone like Messi who's already won it all. I think they're going to be good. I'd love to see them push for the playoffs. I think that'd be great. I hope someone has a camera crew ready and they're filming the documentary for it. I mean, someone has to be at this point. I feel like there's
He's too popular for it not to happen. Yeah.
There's literally a docuseries about my semi-pro team and how they're trying to go pro here. So there's a docuseries about literally everything. So someone's got to film that, because if it happens, that'd be great. But yeah, I don't think they're going to win the MLS Cup, though, at least this year. Maybe next year, build around it. But this year, I think if they can reach the playoffs with as bad as they've been, because they lost I want to say 7 or 8 in a row at one point. Let's look at the standings right now. I haven't actually checked in a few days.
Yeah, because people do make fun of the MLS for being kind of like, just so to speak, like a retirement home for very good, like professional players who played in Europe. Like the most recent example that I can think of was like Ibrahimovic. Came over and played. I don't remember. I think at least like a couple of years with LA.
Yeah, like 1.5 seasons. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's just like kind of how it works in like modern day now. And now Messi's like approaching the end of his career. I don't know how long he will spend in Inter Miami, but it's certainly going to draw an attraction. I think you are right with like the foundation part of it, because there's still an entirely another team that you have to build and form and develop around that, and hopefully he can help expedite that, or maybe bring in some additional young talent from elsewhere. But I just want to get your thoughts on it, because I knew they were like really bad.
Yeah, they're still bottom. They've since I last looked, they've only gotten 2 points, so that's 2 draws. And I mean, to be fair, they're only 9 points off of postseason play, so it's not unrealistic for them to get that. But with as bad as the team has been, I think if they achieve postseason play, that's a huge, huge success for them in terms of on-field play. But let's be real. Bringing him here isn't honestly for the on-field play.
No.
At this point, no. It's for the country. It's for the attention.
Yeah.
And I think if they really want to be contenders next year, because this year I just don't see them being contenders. I think looking at teams like FC Cincinnati that have been building for years, and then you have like St. Louis City, who's been incredible their first year. You still have like LAFC. You have New England, who's been good for a while. Philadelphia. You have all these teams that have been building for a while. They have good academies that are producing players that they're introducing to the first team, and like they're doing it the right way. I think those teams right now are still going to be up here. Inter Miami's got a very good academy in their own right, but it's just too new.
Mm-hmm.
But I think over time, give it a few years, they definitely will have those players coming through. And if you can keep some of these dudes around, get some better players from around the league, Inter Miami could be a legit contender next year or the year after. This year, I think postseason play is what they could reach for. But hey, who knows? Maybe they will go reach the playoffs and then go win the whole damn thing. You never know.
It's been a crazy year for South Florida sports.
Oh my gosh,
it's been a ridiculous year. Whether it was Miami or Florida Atlantic making the Final Four, or whether it was the Panthers or the Heat as 8 seeds making it to their respective league finals, albeit losing in 5 games, I think, in both series.
Yeah.
I mean, the Dolphins are on the rise. The Miami Marlins, I don't know. I know you don't follow baseball, but the Miami Marlins are like, they're playing like a top 5 team in baseball right now, and they weren't expected to be really that good at all heading into the season. They've already won 50 games, or I think they're one of 4 or 5 teams who have reached that threshold already, and they just keep winning. No, it's been a ridiculous year for South Florida sports, and Messi joining Inter Miami is just another piece to that. And hopefully, at least again, as a very casual soccer observer, it's just cool to see something like, I mean, again, I know it's not for the on-field product, as you mentioned, but it's cool to see, obviously, one of, if not the greatest soccer player ever, come to the U.S. and enjoying in that respect, even if it is one of the worst team, or the worst team in the league.
Yeah. But again, he's obviously going to make them better. I could see them making it for the dudes they're bringing, but yeah, in terms of winning it all, no, not this year. Would be crazy year for like you said, continue that crazy year for South Florida. And if Mario Cristobal can get the Hurricanes going this year, then that'd be be a pretty good year to be a South Florida sports fan for sure.
I know because I don't remember how many games they won last year. It was either I think 4 or 5. It was a very disappointing year for football, for Miami football.
Not good at all. But
Um,
they got that brand name though that very few people have. You're at South Beach, so
yeah. I mean, Anthony, I know Florida, at least Florida University, Gainesville's not in South Florida specifically, but Anthony Richardson was a top 5 pick.
Yeah.
Just another one.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to add, man? Like,
that's basically it. It's a nice little slow period. I got some transfer news I got to get on. There's a fair amount of that. Trey's been blasting the soccer chat. I got to get on that. But yeah, that's basically it on my end.
Sounds good, man. Sounds good. Well, like and subscribe. Go to vendettasportsmedia.com. We're on Threads now. Are you on Threads yet? I just got on it last night.
I got on it right before. I saw people talking about it last night. Wake up, see like 30 million people on it overnight. I'm like, shit, all right, I'll get on it.
I'm still not. It's like, it feels just like a knockoff of Twitter, like the Instagram version of Twitter. Yeah, I got on it last night because I had obviously the Vendetta site and channel. They're now on it, so please go follow that. I think it's just at Vendetta Sports Media. But I just saw like a bunch of people who like I follow on Twitter, a couple people who I work with were on it, and it's like, you know what, why not? Let's do this.
Yeah.
But yes, please check us out on Threads if that's something that you're on or something that you plan on joining at some point. Like and subscribe to our YouTube. Give us a 5-star rating. I don't know if we're on like the podcast network, but like give us a 5-star rating if we are. You and Jerry do a lot of good soccer work over there. I read it all the time. Please go check that out with like the transfer news. I know that's kind of like a hot topic right now.
There's so much, man. There's just so much happening. I did the transfer window like weekly update. I'm going to start doing that. So I did one for like the whole summer so far. It literally took me 5 hours. So many tables, so much player news.
Especially when it's worldwide too, like where it's just all these different leagues.
I had to narrow it down to top 5 leagues, Saudi Arabia, and then the rest. I couldn't. I was too tired to even convert because I found like a list that used the British pounds instead of American dollars, and I just didn't have it in me to convert it. I was like, I can't. But there's always so much going on, so much rumors, so always some fun stuff to talk about with that.
So yeah, please go check that out. Again, you and Jerry do a lot of good work for the site in terms of like our soccer coverage. I think we've really improved that since you joined, since Jerry came back for his second stint. So please go check that out on the website. Again, like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys, or at least check out the Daily Show crew tomorrow. But for me, I'll see you guys next week.